Welcome, everybody, to another episode of On the House with Spartan Invest. Today, we have a special guest. We have Noah Baker joining us. Now, before he jumps on, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Noah is a dynamic entrepreneur. He's a financial strategist and a former U.S. Army serviceman with a mission to really revolutionize how individuals approach wealth creation. As the founder of the Refine Group, Noah specializes in innovative cash flow strategies and wealth building solutions, and really helping to empower his clients to achieve financial freedom through actionable and tailored plans. And really pulling from his military background, Noah focuses with discipline, leadership, and really just commitment to excellence. So thank you so much, Noah, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Lindsay. I appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about you. I kind of read the high, I've said the high level, but tell us a little bit about your group and what you guys are about.
Yeah, so Refine Group is really, I would call it a private yellow pages, really of just professionals in the industry that are like-minded with the official goal of helping consumers reach financial freedom. So I focus primarily on creating cash flow strategies for people and helping them get out of what I would call the accumulation mindset and really shift over to an acceleration mindset.
And so what would you define as like an acceleration mindset? What is the difference between that?
Yeah, I think the best way to answer that is probably to just give an example. So I would say that the majority of people fall under accumulation mindset, which is really how can we just earn the best rate of return to get to said goal in the future. And that's really the only thing that people ever do. And you can find that in how they invest inside of retirement accounts or brokerage accounts or wherever that may be. But the problem with that can be you're limiting yourself to single investments that can put you at a lot more risk than you don't necessarily need to be taking. And at the end of the day, the result could be not what you want it to be or not what you hope it might be. Shifting over to acceleration is how can I actually minimize my risk, minimize the risk I'm taking on, my exposure to loss, and invest in things and position my money in a way that can earn more than one rate of return. Real estate's a great example of that, which is why I love Spartan Invest.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you listen to this podcast, we talk a lot about that accumulation mindset through real estate. So tell us a little bit like how you approach designing those plans for your clients that, you're offering kind of a little bit of flexibility, but more control over that wealth. And I know a lot of times people get in that mindset of, hey, I've got to put my money in a 401k and then I'll have enough to retire. And so as your clients are getting ready to transition into retirement, how are you building and designing their plans?
Yeah. I think what's most important with anybody we look at is to take a step back and figure out what type of investor that they want to be. Most
It's
people,
very important. Yeah.
yeah, most people just fall under the category of just kind of getting in line and doing what everybody else is doing. And there's so much information out there that just tells us, hey, these are the best things to be doing without actually verifying if it's true. I think Warren Buffett might have said it, but somebody said it once that financial plans don't work in essence because if you change one variable, the whole plan blows up.
Mhm.
And so I take the approach of being in a constant state of just calibrating with people. So somebody comes in and we figure out what kind of investor that they want to be, and we align them with the right people like Spartan or whomever else that may be. And then we're in a constant state of getting together and figuring out, hey, what's the next best decision right now? Instead of coming up with a binder that I give them that says, hey, if you invest this and get X amount of return for this many years, you're going to have X million dollars in the future. It's not going to work for people, and it's not immediate value. And so taking the step back and just being okay with flexibility and creating the most liquidity and cash flow for people is going to get the best results. Opportunity finds cash. That's a phrase I've heard several different times. And so the goal is to create more cash so we can take advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So who's your average client? Who do you typically work with, that
Yeah.
demographic?
I love working with people who are questioning the traditional mindset around finance. The type of people that have upward mobility, that they're going to be going somewhere in the future and just want a little bit of a roadmap how to do that. Those are the most fun to work with. When I work with the people like that, I often find that they feel a little bit stuck where they're at, whether it's their W-2 job or whatever else, with big ambitions. They just don't know how to get there.
Right.
And so it's really fun conversations, just walking through with people and painting a picture of the future for them.
Yeah, and it can be very scary, especially if you're unaware of the different avenues that you could take. It can be very intimidating. You had said stuck in that mindset. So, what would you say are the key limitations when you're looking at traditional retirement accounts like your 401ks? What would you say that those limitations are?
Yeah. I think what's most important to remember, and the way that I look at it, is a dollar that can't be converted to a use, like it's not really there in essence. So with a traditional retirement account, for example, that might be good and well and have a ton of money in it. But when you want to go and use the money, there's a lot of limitations on it. So traditional retirement plans you can't touch until 59 and a half, sometimes 55, depending on the rules. And when you go do that, nobody I've found ever liquidates the whole thing. So if they've got an amazing investment out there that they want to go make, they want to become a real investor when they go to retire, they can't do that because there's a looming tax burden on it. And so you can't, if I've got so much money in a retirement account, you can't just take a lump sum distribution without being in the highest tax bracket possible.
Yeah.
And so right along the way, your partner in the deal, which is Uncle Sam, is taking his fair share, not only on what you've put in, but also on what you've earned.
I mean, that's absolutely right. So, Noah, can you walk us through, so your typical client, what are you setting them up with? Are you pointing them in the direction of, like we said, real estate, or are you setting them up ways to do infinite banking? Walk us through your average client and how you set them up for success outside of the traditional like 401k.
Yeah. So the average person that comes in, I'm going to take them through a series of exercises that really help us determine what they know about what they have, what they don't know about what they have, what they like about what they have, and what they don't like. So we begin to develop along the way what that person wants to be as an investor. And so the first thing that they go through is a cash flow exercise where we figure out, hey, what are your numbers? Because for most people, if the goal is financial freedom, the moving target of what your cash flows are is really hard to hit. And so we have to know our numbers. That's really important. The second thing that we go through is a protection exercise. For most people that come in the door, and probably most people listening to this, their greatest asset, their best asset that they have is their ability to earn an income. And so we have to look at, how do we protect against the things that could blow that up, the things that could take their income away. A lot of times that ends up with a well-placed insurance policy. After we do that, we then look at, think of it as a concierge service of connecting them with the other people that are in Refine Group that are going to be helpful in getting them to the next stage. So I've had people before that they're still working 40 hours a week. They don't have a lot of time to put towards being a full-time real estate investor, I would call it, but they just have the itch to be in real estate. They've heard about it. They like the benefits of it. And so that would be a perfect person to introduce to Spartan Invest, because you guys will come in and have your strategies and your properties and your property management that's really turnkey for those people. And so they'll be able to become a informed investor on that front, create more cash flow while still doing what they need to do and going to work. So it's really a holistic approach that ends up with just connecting consumers with the best people for them.
So with those setups and all of the financial hurdles, like you got taxes, RMDs, and all of that can also feel overwhelming, especially for your clients that are unfamiliar with all of these different options. How do you take those and really simplify them so they can take actions?
Yeah, you're right. It can be super overwhelming. What I've found with people is that it's really easy to just take the next best step forward. And so when we look at everything that somebody has going on, and whether they're aware of it or not, we make them aware of the potential problems that are lying in the future, like taxes, RMDs, whatever else that may be. And we figure out how do we either mitigate or minimize that in current dollars. Sometimes, frankly, people are really close to that point, and there's only so much we can do to minimize the taxes. But then we're looking at kind of a generational approach of, hey, what's the net effect if you leave it here to your children and your children's children? I think what's most important for people to understand, and I walk them through this, is what I would call the proximity of consequence, which we've talked about before. Which practical example of that I heard before is, if you're somebody who's a lifelong smoker of cigarettes, chances are you're going to die pretty early in life. Bottom line, you're going to get some kind of lung cancer. The statistics are there.
Right.
If we know that that's the case, and we want to be there to walk our granddaughter and our daughter down the aisle, and we want to be there at the soccer games, why do we keep doing it? Well, it's because the consequence is so far in the future that we don't think about it. We have a very hard time putting ourselves there. Now, if I laced your next cigarette with poison, I guarantee you'll stop, because the consequence is tomorrow. You'll die tomorrow. And so from a financial point of view, being able to paint that picture for people and show them, hey, this is the emotional conversation behind this financial conversation. This is what you have to look forward to. Is this where you want to be? And if the answer is no, then we make the change.
That's a very interesting analogy. And it is, especially right now, with the consequence or the rise of immediate gratification. And so how do you tailor your clients' expectations with setting up these proposals and saying, hey, look, this isn't going to be tomorrow. You'll get there and it'll be a lot sooner, but it's not going to be tomorrow. How do you work through that, especially if they're closer to retirement?
Yeah. There's a few different ways I would do that for people. The number one way is really just trying to paint that picture of what has the better effect at the end. So I'll take somebody through an exercise where, even if they're close to retirement, let's call it 10 years. I'll take them through the exercise where it shows them, hey, 10 years from now, if you don't do anything different, this is what your income's going to be. This is what your taxes might be. This is where interest rates could be. And then I ask this simple question that says, what could happen that would blow this up? What's anything in your world that could happen that could make this not possible? And we always settle on the main things are income taxes could go up, interest rates could go down. I mean, 2-3 years ago, we had that environment where you couldn't go find fixed money and provide a safe income for your family based on the traditional finance. And so we'll show them that picture, and then I'll show them just a few options of what I might do for them as far as helping them get connected with the right real estate or insurance or whatever that may be, and figure out how many things have to go wrong in order to blow this plan up. It always comes down to the number one stealer of wealth, confiscator of wealth, is the IRS. And they're not going to like me saying that, of course,
Of
but
course not, but I mean,
yeah.
it's
So,
accurate.
so every time you make a financial decision, you have to ask yourself, who are the partners that I'm taking on? So if I'm investing in an IRA, I have to realize, well, the partners I'm taking on is whoever's the custodian of the account and the IRS. And then you have to ask, what's the pecking order of the partners? So for your IRA account, IRS comes first. The custodian who's charging fees is going to come before you get your money as well. And then you're the third benefactor, really, of your money. And so as we can eliminate those risks and take taxable dollars out of a taxable state and put them in a more tax advantaged position, that person has a higher chance of winning. I'm a guy that's about creating the highest probability of creating the maximum amount of money, maximum amount of cash flow, instead of the highest possibility. Most people come to me and they're in a world of, hey, it's possible that this account could do this. It's a possible that I'm going to reach this amount of dollars. We take them out of that and teach them how to make it the highest probability. It's very probable I'm going to reach this.
Like that. So, and you don't have to say real estate. That does not have to be your answer because that's what Spartan Invest does. But what is your favorite path that you send clients on to achieving their financial freedom and the accumulation wealth?
Yeah. I would say my favorite path is actually using a cash flow. I'll call it a software, but really a system called Currents. It's new to the game, but it's really fresh. The reason why I would say that that's my favorite is because it creates immediate results for people. And so, regardless of the type of investor that they are, if they want to be really safe or they want to invest in some real estate or start a business, whatever that may be, it's about creating the cash flow. And so, when I help people use Currents, the cash flow structure, that immediately gets them in a world of unconsciously saving money that they just didn't know was possible before. It doesn't change their standard of living. If you know anything about me, I hate budgeting. Budgeting doesn't work. Budgeting sucks. I like to just enjoy my life, swipe when I need to or want to, and there's enough there at the end. And so using currents in a cash flow structure allows people to continue to do that. And then there's just money at the end. And we've seen that time and time again with people. There's enough data behind it that the savings rate of people on currents is like 6 times higher than the national average. And so you can imagine these people that maybe didn't know how to save money before, that can save money now, or maybe they were really good savers. They just didn't know they had the capacity to save a lot more money. You can imagine how exciting it is to connect them with people like Spartan or help them place some kind of banking policy or whatever that may be, because it's immediate. It's an immediate win for that person, and they're creating out of something that they didn't have to change that much to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you explain a little bit more about the platform or you said it's relatively new?
Yeah, absolutely. So the structure has been around for a while. There's a really brilliant guy who started it, and he'd been doing it for his clients for, the past 20 years or so. And so he saw the problem and created the software around it. But what it basically does is this. It creates what I would call a wealth coordination account. Now, that's not my term, but a wealth coordination account is really an account that has a purpose to it. The purpose is to create more wealth, more cash flow. Most people, when they get a paycheck or income, it falls right into, at some level, it falls into their checking account. So when the money falls into their checking account, it's safe to say that that's the account that they spend money out of. If they're a business owner, that's their operating account. And so when that person spends money out of the account, sometimes there's money left over. Hopefully there's money left over. And the next best thing that they do is usually some kind of transfer over to some savings vehicle, whether it's just a savings account, whether they're making an investment, whatever that is. But you and I both know that life happens, and you never know what's going to happen. We're always changing. It's moving variables. And so what you end up doing is pulling money from whatever you just saved it in, putting it back in your checking account so you can go spend it, pay off the credit card, whatever that is. And so you create this vicious cycle of your cash flows controlling you instead of you controlling your cash flows. And so the software solution to it through Currents creates a wealth coordination account, or they call it a reservoir account, which by definition is just a storage tank for money. It's an interest-bearing savings account. And what we do is set every inflow, every cash flow into somebody's world, it hits that account first. And then you tell the software, hey, I would like to spend A practical example, I'd like to spend $10,000 a month. It will transfer that into your checking account. You can go ahead and spend, swipe however you need to. Any additional cash flows that hit the account are just always there accumulating. And there's something cognitive and psychological with the fact that you're saving first instead of spending first, that it just creates the results for people. It I believe it's going to revolutionize the game and the industry for people in creating wealth, the ones that take advantage of it.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So Noah, if any of our listeners want to hear more from you or set up a time to meet with you, where should they go?
Yeah. So you can go right to my website. It's therefinegrp.com, TheRefineGRP.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. If you go to my website, there's a tab right on the front that says schedule a free cash flow mapping. That's the first place to start for everybody. It's so crucial to know your numbers. That way, in order to hit your goals, it's not a moving target anymore. And so I'd be happy to go through that with me, or somebody on my team will go through that with anybody that calls in from the show today.
Awesome. Well, Noah, thank you so much for joining us. Any last tidbit or information you want to share with the audience?
I think if I had any parting thoughts, I said it a bit ago, but just remember that opportunity finds cash.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Noah, thank you so much for joining us today. And that's On the House with Spartan Invest.